So my last video was about issues in the Metropolitan Police, and you could probably tell that that's uh, was something I felt quite strongly about because abuse in power or incompetence of power are two issues that can gravely affect the public or individuals within an organisation. The last video was about the police. Just a quick kind of update on that one, or not update, but follow up, I guess. There was another incident. I looked at the Metropolitan Police Facebook page, and someone questioned why they were taking down posters of missing Israeli children, and they released a statement providing context that the officers claimed it was to de-escalate tensions, and they claimed that there'd been social media comments in that particular area that had been put next to the posters. But I think it's tone deaf. They failed to see the optics of this. And optics are so important in policing. Of course, context is very important as well. Of course it is. But I read the context and I don't think it was um, a very strong argument in favour of what the officers done, taking down the posters to supposedly de-escalate tensions. Because what really sends out the message as is we're going to appease the mob. What person could be could be triggered by or be offended by a poster of a missing child, a kidnapped child, not missing, kidnapped. You know, the person in the picture is the victim. How someone could report that, it's beyond me. Anyway, um, that was the police. What I'm going to talk about now, I don't talk about as much. It's actually the army, and this is a report from the Sun. The report's by Nick Parker, and it's November the 2nd. I'm just going to read it out because it's not too long, but I'll warn you, it's quite disturbing details. Um, and the issues about hazing in the army, bullying in the army. Soldiers stripped and set on fire. A former army recruit is suing defence chiefs for £200,000, claiming he was stripped naked, wrapped in loo roll, and set on fire in an initiation ceremony. Jake Tutt, 22, claims the ordeal, in which comrades also forced him to drink their urine, left him mentally scarred and effectively ended his military career. He also alleged he was partially deafened by gunfire and explosion during training after losing his ear defenders and then told to stop being a pussy. This is verbatim. The ex-squaddie is fighting the Ministry of Defence at London's High Court, claiming at least £200,000 for trauma and hearing loss. Now, before people say, "Oh, that's a lot of money," you factor in a lot of expenses with that. Not to mention loss of earnings from leaving his profession. Court documents allege he was bullied and harassed while serving with the Princess of Wales Royal Regiment in Paderborn, Germany in 2019. His barrister, Sabrina Hartshorn, said he was forced to strip, wrapped in toilet paper and sniper tape, and set alight while having to consume food and drink mixed with semen and urine. I've just read that now, actually. Uh, She also claims he was headbutted by a corporal. Mr. Tutt of Eastleigh, Hampshire, was medically discharged from the regiment in March 2021. The MOD was given time to file a defence on a date to be fixed. This is a report. It's from the 2nd of November. Um, Now, obviously, I wasn't there. I don't know what the truth is, but frankly, my instinct is I believe him. I believe this probably happened. Why? Because I think that the armed forces, in all probability, still have a culture of hazing and bullying. I think there's no question about it. Um, and I think you get it in other services as well, probably in the police, probably to a lesser extent in the fire service. Um, Hospitals can certainly have bullying, workplace bullying, but this is like torture. That's how I describe it, torture. Um, this poor guy is all he wanted to do is serve his country. He's only 22 years old. I mean, that's going to be with him for years, maybe forever. I really hope he wins the case, but it's not about money. It's about I'm sick of reading that. Um, but I personal disclaimer here, and some people might say I shouldn't do this, but a little bit of personal context. I tried to join the Royal Navy Reserves in late 2020, in the first half of 2021. I actually got to the stage of basic training. It was all online because of the pandemic. Now, I found it interesting. I didn't have any bad experiences. I wasn't accepted in the end. They cited my history of depression, and I feel I've no problem revealing this. I mean, the issue about trying to join the Navy Reserves, because it's only the reserves. It's not like I wouldn't be saying this if I tried to join the SAS, for example. Um, Obviously, that was very disappointing. And the issue about depression, well, that was the formal reason given by the third party medical assessor. But anyway, I just mention it because my own experience, I never saw what I would call bullying. Um, and personally, I got on well with my colleagues, the other recruits. I guess partly because we were only in the unit, you know, once. So I'm not going to. Maybe I don't have enough to base this on. Um, but I never experienced bullying myself. I never experienced anything like there was very much an egalitarian basis between the recruits. That's what it felt like. We respected each other, and although it was a brief time, there seemed to be respect there. Um, there were a few officers that you wouldn't mess with, but I expected that. It was the armed forces. Um, there was one. Yeah. Anyway, that was my context. But I wonder now when I read cases like this, I wonder. You know, I've got a different accent. I wonder would that be would that set me out? Um, and this young man just all he wanted to do is serve his country, and he has to face this horrible ordeal, this despicable ordeal. And to those who done it, shame on them, absolute shame on them. The military, with good reason, we're coming up to Remembrance Sunday, is a highly respected profession. These are men and women who risk their lives for the country and have done throughout the centuries. But it's time to be honest here. There are some real shits in uniform. There are some pretty nasty individuals who, slip through the vetting process, who have a bit of power and they use it. They use it to brutalize others. It's disgusting, absolutely disgusting. And what I think is, if they're going to do that to a British squaddy, what could they potentially do to, for example, a civilian when they're stationed abroad or in a war zone? This is why I don't join that chorus of right wing defensiveness when British soldiers are accused of something. I think that there's a possibility there that there may be soldiers who abuse their position. But I believe in due process, and I believe everyone should have a fair trial. In this case, it is only allegations. But the obvious question is, why would this guy, people might say, oh, he just wants the money, but why would he make all of this up, go through the whole legal process and all the stress that involves, go to court hearings, go through all of this, face his former senior officers, presumably. I just don't buy that he would do that for no reason. And I really think, the armed forces have greatly improved in terms of ethnic diversity and sexual diversity. They have genuinely improved. That's a good thing. It's to be welcomed. But I do believe that this sort of stuff absolutely goes on. Now, I never personally witnessed it. It's my gut feeling. It's just a gut feeling. But I believe him, and I hope he gets justice. But it's disgusting. I mean, treating another human being that way is repulsive, and it's particularly disgusting that it's aimed at someone who's done nothing wrong. This is a young man who just wanted to serve his country. So I think the armed forces need to do a hell of a lot more to prove that they are tackling this hazing culture. This isn't banter. This is torture. This is torture. And it really, it really disgusts me when people use this excuse of it's banter. It happens to all the new recruits, or these are the sort of excuses people will make. Or he's just being too sensitive. Too sensitive? Too sensitive? This is a guy that was, forced to drink piss and semen. I feel disgusted just reading it. I've heard of bad cases. This is a particularly bad one. Um, and then told to stop being a pussy. Now, I would not at all be surprised if a senior officer took that attitude. And it's a toxic culture. Now, again, I'm not disparaging the forces here. I have enormous respect for those who, you know, defend our country. Of course, I do. Um, but absolutely no one who joins the armed forces should be subjected to this. It's repulsive. I mean, Deep Cut Barracks is within living memory. The scandal at the barracks where there were, I believe it was 4 or 5 suicides over a relatively short period of time. And in all those cases, there were allegations of bullying and hazing. Um, this is a barbaric, backward practice that has no place in the modern world, in any institution. But I think, when you have a macho environment, it's definitely more prone for that. Of course, you get it in universities as well. These Ivy League universities, you hear about it in the States and in Britain as well. It probably happens at Oxford and Cambridge. It would not at all surprise me. Maybe not as much as the past, but hazing is basically torture in its worst forms. Now, people might say, "Oh, but it's a robust environment. There's ridicule aimed at everyone." I'm sorry, but you cannot tell me that a young squaddy being stripped naked and abused in this way is normal behaviour. It's just a bit of banter. That's sick. That is absolutely sick. And imagine the nightmare situation this young man would have been in. If he complains, he risks further abuse, or he's told to shut up, or he's told he's a pussy. If he does nothing, it continues. This is sick. And I know that, to be in the armed forces, it's it's a career where potentially your life could be on the line in a war zone. But you can't convince me that targeting an individual, that sort of targeted bullying, prepares someone for a war zone, because it's a different thing. That is a danger situation where everyone's life is in danger. I don't think that targeted bullying of an individual. I mean, think of the film Full Metal Jacket. If anyone's seen that, the character Private Pile, that's a good illustration of. It's obviously a fictional film, but hazing isn't fictional. It happens, and it's not just this country. It happens in other militaries as well. South Korea had a big scandal a few years ago in which a young recruit died. Russia treats its soldiers like numbers. I mean, being a Russian soldier is probably one of the worst jobs in the world, and Putin's using them as cannon fodder in Ukraine right now, or artillery fodder is probably a more contemporary expression. But I just don't think this guy would put himself through all of that if he was just making it up. So I really, really hope he wins his case, and I hope it sends out a message to the MOD. But to be honest, it's not about money. There should be a change in the culture, because we've had an issue in this country in recent years. The army has shrunk. Its numbers have went down. Now, how the hell are they going to encourage young people to join the army if people think, well, I'll join and I'm the new recruit, so I'm going to be hazed. The same thing's going to happen to me. This is horrible. And we're not talking about 50 years ago. We're talking about 4 years ago. And I have no doubt it goes on today in 2023. Right now, I am convinced that there will be a barracks somewhere where something similar is happening. Maybe this is an extreme case, but I would not at all be surprised if there's something very ugly going on that's being masked up as banter. Now, obviously, if someone is genuinely too sensitive, they shouldn't be in the armed forces. There is going to be a bit of, let's say, a rough and tumble atmosphere on some level, right? I know that's certainly true in the Navy. They told us of some of the traditions that take place. and I accepted all of that. But I say there is definitely a red line between genuine banter versus targeted bullying and that sort of extreme humiliation. It's torture, really. It's mental torture. And this guy is going to be facing PTSD for years. It doesn't say he's even served abroad, so he's facing PTSD. I don't know if he served on the front lines or not, but frankly, it's irrelevant. PTSD takes many forms. It isn't just those who've served in war zones. It can take many forms. Targeted, relentless bullying can also cause PTSD. So, just reading that, I'm utterly, utterly disgusted. I really feel for the guy. It's a horrible thing for anyone to go through. I hope he wins his case, and I hope he can rebuild his life. Now, I assume, unlike me, the army was his dream job. For me, it was just the navy was just something I considered. It wasn't like a dream job. But in many cases, when someone does this full time, it's something they've dreamed of. It's something they want to do, and then they go through that. It's horrible, absolutely horrible. And I don't think the MOD is doing anywhere near enough to deal with this problem. That's my feeling. I don't think they're doing enough to deal with it. But there's people in the armed forces that know this goes on, and if they're silent, they're just as guilty because it's a culture of this is okay. Well, it's not okay. And I'll just conclude this by saying if someone wants to say, "Oh, you're being anti-military" or something rubbish, it's precisely because I respect what they do. I don't think any young soldier should have to go through this, or sailor, or airman, air personnel, I should say. No one should go through that. It's disgusting, and it shouldn't take an extreme case, for changes to be made. And this should not be happening in the third decade of the 21st century. It's outrageous. Um, and I just hope he, stays strong, because this is a key thing. Bullying victims in any context, not just the army, are always portrayed as weak. He's not weak. I would say he's a strong character. For going through this process to try and get justice, I would say he's a strong character, a lot stronger than the thugs who put him through that. And that's what I think of them. Uniform or not, you treat another human being that way, you get no respect from me. Let me know your thoughts. I'd be particularly interested in hearing from service personnel. What do you think of this? Are you going to make excuses for it? Do you agree with me? Do you think this should be taken seriously? What do you think? I'd like to know your opinions. But I will say, if anyone tries to condone it, that's I don't know how you can. Thanks for watching.